So I tend to talk through our history. So and the main aim is just to put the candidate at ease in that first 10 minutes, rather than pouncing on them with questions and diving straight into them, talking through their CVs, and it just gives them a bit of a time to relax and really get, an opportunity. Within an hour, we want to get to know someone as best we can within that interview hour. So I think this is a bit of an icebreaker, really. So 60 years old globally, we are 26 years old in NDY London, and 1 year old in NDY Dublin. So Dublin is an office we launched in the middle of lockdown, taking advantage of the hybrid nature of the workforce, allowed us to get a foothold in a post-Brexit foothold in Europe, if you like. And that team's growing as well. So there's a bit of a geographical diversification strategy that we're growing in Europe effectively, and we're looking for further growth beyond London and Dublin in the next 5 to 10 years.
That's exciting.
It's exciting. It's something to get people involved in. We're not static. We're looking forward. We've grown in lockdown, so we went into the pandemic with 55 to 60 staff, and currently in London we have 85 staff. So that is a good indicator of the business health and our drive for growth in the future. And I think that's a really exciting team to join. We've been in a transition period. Me as a regional director, relatively young as a regional director, and personally I've been with NDY for going on 14 years now. And I joined as a junior, not quite graduate, but a junior engineer, as I did a graduate program elsewhere. And then having kind of run through the business, starting in our Manchester office and moving to London about 10, 11, it feels like 10, it's probably 12 years ago now, and come through the engineering development program that NDY has, and now sitting as regional director. It's a really good story to be able to share with people in terms of the way that we encourage and support career development.
Nice. Is there an opportunity for your staff to sort of move within those offices?
Absolutely. Yeah, we encourage it. And we have done for the last, as long as I remember, so 15 years. It's made for something that you can't really get overnight. So we do a lot of rotations globally. I've currently got people from the Brisbane office in London, Melbourne and Sydney people in the London office, all at varying stages of their time in London. They typically would do 5 years, because visas can last 5 years, and then they'll rotate back. And that has been brilliant for us globally. So I've sent people the other way as well. So there's one of my guys from Manchester who put his hand up 2 years ago. He said he wants to move to Australia with his partner, and she was a journalist, so she was pretty freelance. So he had some skills in certain sectors and so he was commercial offices and interiors. We rotated him for 2 years into different disciplines. So he did time in mission critical team, working on data centers. He did time in the smart buildings team, and the purpose of that was not knowing what he would be needed for in Melbourne when he landed 2 years later. We wanted to put as many strings to his bow so that he was versatile and utilized at maximum, basically, when he landed in Australia. And sure enough, he's kicking goals over in Melbourne at the minute. He's loving it, and we've sent them really good quality candidates that way, as well as them sending us this way. And our graduate rotation program is mimicked in every office. So we've got a really good progression plan from grad +0 all the way through to grad +4. We get some really high caliber individuals, and it means that we can send them around to other offices with confidence that they're going to perform at the standard that we know we get from the Australian offices rotating. So we've been doing that for the last 10, 15 years. And actually now my counterparts who are running the Brisbane office, the Perth office, the Canberra office, the Sydney office, have all spent time with me in London. So we're very well connected with, we're mates basically. And I can ring up Sydney and say, look, I've got a resource shortage. I need some help on a project. And it's a personal relationship that we can then get overnight support. And we used to say that 10 years ago, that it was an opportunity to be able to accelerate programs, to have resource in different parts of the world. We actually now readily use that, and it's really good for our kind of resource pool resilience, if you like. It means that we're not having to have peaks and troughs of people joining and leaving the business in London. We can control our resource management globally and have people who've actually worked in London before work on London projects from the other side of the clock, which also gives us some acceleration capacity as well, because we can speed things up and do twice the amount of work in 24 hours.
That's amazing. That's a very clever way of doing things.
Yeah, it's, you know, it gives us that resilience, and it does make a huge difference. And, you know, when people have left, we've had, you know, people leave the business, and one of the big things that I'm, you know, championing is reconnecting whenever we've got new starters, is to realize the power of the network that we've got globally, and that's just within NDY. The next part of our business is on the next slide. Actually, that's quite neatly into that bit. So Tetra Tech acquired us 3 years ago. That's our parent company, and Tetra Tech have something in the order of 20 to 24,000 staff globally, right? It's a over $3 billion US revenue business, and out of the 20 odd thousand staff, there's only 2,500 of those are MEP consultants. So they do a lot of infrastructure work in the US, water, utility, in the defence sector. They're very big, but they're not necessarily buildings and construction and MEP. They do all sorts, as an entity that is basically based in science and leads in science across multiple sectors. Glumac, Cosentini, and NDY, and more recently Hawley, who've joined the Tetra Tech family, are our affiliates that make up that 2,500 MEP consulting staff globally. So Glumac and Cosentini give us East and West Coast US coverage. NDY obviously covers Asia Pacific region and the UK, and Hawley cover UK and Europe as well as NDY. So new partnership forming there.
Nice.
That gives us, beyond the NDY resource pool to draw on, we're now able to match and mark our clients globally. Where they have a global portfolio, we can match the footprint that they have with our affiliate partners. So it's very much a benefit of joining Tetra Tech. It is that while Tetra Tech's not necessarily a known brand because they do a lot of different stuff and they're not that present in the UK as MEP consultants, they do give us our affiliate partners that give us a global footprint, and that means we can tell. Historically, we would have to say the likes of Google as a client, for example. We would have had to say, well, we can support you in this region in the UK, and in Australia, we're doing their Sydney headquarters and their Melbourne headquarters, and London's headquarters, and Dublin's headquarters. But then outside of those regions in the US, we weren't able to really support them with boots on the ground. Whereas now we can say, well, as Tetra Tech, we've got affiliate partners that we can support your portfolio globally, and that puts us a higher grade on the map, competing with bigger global players in the consulting world. So real benefits of being part of this consortium. I always raise our visions and values. This is core to our drive for our people, our existing people, and our recruitment drive. So it's important to know that if you're going to join the NDY team, we hold these values really dear, and as a focus on collaboration and our people first approach. There's some people that really blend into that culture, and there's some people that don't necessarily blend into that culture, and we strive to keep these values as high on the agenda. So every 8 weeks, all of our staff members will catch up with their line manager every 8 weeks, and that is at the beginning of the year, a goal setting mission. So personal goals and then team goals, and then at 8 weeks we track those goals, and we revisit the progress towards those metrics. If they're not delivering towards a certain goal, we have that 8-week catch up and say, right, what project do we need you to work on to give you some exposure to that skill set and that kind of thing. But also we revisit these values and just keep, you know, repeating and reinforcing that the things that are important, and chat about these values. Are they challenged? by a particular project? Are they being pushed to be outside, to behave in a way outside of the core values? How do we then deal with it as a team? What support can we provide the individual? And that kind of approach. So I think it's important that to know that if you're joining NDY, the people in the team that you're joining are shared values, are sharing these values.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's good about the 8-week catch up as well. I think that's something that is really important, and it doesn't happen in every business. Have you had any feedback from your staff on being able to have those catch ups?
Yeah, I think people get a lot out of it, and the business gets a lot out of it. The feedback from, through the course of lockdown, particularly, and everything was exacerbated, right? That working in our respective homes meant that we were less connected if we were not careful. And because we had this 8 weeks catch up program going for the last 5 years, it meant that there was already a natural catch up routine and rhythm and sort of relationship that didn't necessarily revolve around project discussions, which is a danger. If you're only ever meeting people on a Teams call and just talking about projects, and if the same thing, if you imagine in person, you only ever talked about a project with your colleagues, it'd be crazy, right? You wouldn't be getting to know the depth behind people, what their drivers are, what their personal challenges are, their family aspirations are, all of those kind of nice things that make a good team. So I think those 8 week catch-ups actually saved our team as a basis through the lockdown period, and we layered on more catch-ups because 8 weeks wasn't enough, obviously, to make sure people were connected, and managers stepped in and did a daily 15-minute call to bring the team together. All those kind of things that kept us all together. And having grown in that last 2 years, I think shows the togetherness of the team. We managed to obviously look after our client interests by, I think, looking after our people first and making sure our engineers and our consultants were getting what they needed from human interaction, and that spilled out into the client interactions as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And it's also coming back to your values as well. I think it's fantastic that you keep those at the forefront, because again, I think there's a number of businesses that have values, but they sort of have them on their website and that's it. So yeah, that's lovely to hear as well.
Yeah, it's important, and I think we reinforce our purpose regularly as well. And as a global business, NDY's purpose is making spaces work, and it's kind of gone to a very simplified response to probably most of our partners asking, what the hell do engineers do? and what do you do in your day job? And it quite simply is making spaces work. We aren't the architect. We aren't looking at necessarily the look and feel and the vision of a building and a development. We bring the functionality to that space and we make the space work. And that simply put is quite a great purpose. I think it's what gets us out of bed in the morning, and we reinforce that message regularly as well.
That's great. That's lovely.
We cover all these regions. We have offices across the globe, mostly in Australia and then New Zealand and London and Dublin, as I've mentioned. We cover, in terms of sector coverage, we're present in all of these sectors globally. In the London office, we kind of major in commercial offices, mission critical. The two key sort of, each of those make 2/5 of our turnover in London. Cool. And then we're involved in those other sectors as well, resi, hotels. So I've got a couple of project case studies that I'll just flash up on screen in a second, because if you don't know NDY, you would very likely know some of the projects that we've designed in London anyway. And then we have these disciplines. So aside from our core mechanical, electrical, public health, engineering capability, globally we have in-house teams, in-house capability that cover all of these core services. In London, we have sustainability, fire engineering, and smart buildings, which comes under the ICT consultancy, digital engineering and digital consultancy piece. And those are more buoyant in our London offices, but we can draw on our global resource for all of these disciplines. And globally, we're around 600 people. So NDY, 600 people globally, but 80, like I say, 85 in the UK.
Nice.
Another slide just capturing the Hawley addition to what we now formed. So we had Cosentini, Glumac, NDY, but as we've joined Hawley into the group with their numbers in the UK, we formed the High Performance Buildings Group.
Nice.
The High Performance Buildings Group is effectively the title of this consortium, and it's when we want to bid and approach the global clients. This is the banner that we go in under, effectively. So if you don't know us, you might know our jobs. There's a lot of activity in the refurb market. So from Whitechapel building, you might recognise that, all the way through to Westfield Stratford. Westfield Stratford is a place most people might have done a bit of shopping before it went quiet. It's getting busy again now. Repeat client and repeat nature of client activity is really core and key to our development. Westfield was an Australian client. They're Australian originally. We've kind of maintained that relationship over the water, and Westfield Stratford was then spilled into Westfield Croydon that we supported them on in terms of development and master planning, and then even went into Westfield Milan as well, where we were supporting the master planning activity over there. We're involved in residential, so Greenwich Peninsula as well, some tower projects there that we're supporting on, and commercial offices, as I say. So the Angel building was Derwent project. Derwent are a key client in the commercial offices sector for us. 2 Redmond Place for delivering an international quarter over in Stratford, and then Millennium Bridge House on the Thames. That's been a significant project for us in terms of the engineering solutions that we put forward. Enabled that building to take all of the engineering equipment off the roof as it was originally and put it all in the basement, which was quite an engineering challenge. And the basement is filled with kit, all the boilers and air handling and cooling equipment, everything is in the basement, and that enabled a roof terrace overlooking the Thames. Can you imagine the value that added for the client? And that was Sibsey News magazine front page news in terms of what we did for that building and how we managed to produce a new plant room on the roof, but it was actually sort of trees on the roof rather than engineering.
It's incredible.
So yeah, exciting projects that we're involved in, and as you say, as you're walking over Millennium Bridge, you'd recognise that building over there. We do a lot of work in interiors, fit out, so the occupier space within the buildings, and Google is a key client for us. So Google and DeepMind, we support all sorts of occupiers, from legal, so law firms, to tech firms, to hedge fund firms, small boutique fit outs in the city. We cover the range there, and there's a strong presence. Really strong sustainability offering that NDY has at its core as well. And since sustainability and net zero carbon is a key area of focus for NDY for the last 10 years, we're in a really good position to support clients with their cross portfolio strategies for net zero carbon, driving towards 2030 targets. And our sustainability team is in high demand, actually, and doing a really good job of supporting the client journey, because I think a lot of it is about education while we learn and develop. We don't have a silver bullet of how to solve the issues on every project, but it's more about the partnership and the journey. So hotels, you may have had breakfast in the Ned, which is an NDY project. It's a big networking hub for a lot of people in the construction industry, so we're really proud of this project. Grade 2 listed, used to be the Midland Bank and converted to hotel, which is a huge undertaking. And a hotel sector probably a little quiet at the moment. We're seeing it come back. Has been quiet for the last couple of years, but we've got a good presence in the market in with these kind of flagship projects. These are the headline ones. Data centers, as I said, is a big portion of our revenue, and it was actually on the back of a data center client rollout across Europe that the NDY London office started back in 1999. So we have data centers and mission critical at the core of our engineering, and I think that gives us a really good quality baseline. Our quality processes have grown out of a mission critical kind of background thinking, and you can't really make a mistake twice on a on a data center and get it wrong. So our processes are really rigorous around quality control as we produce our designs. And life sciences, we're seeing a lot of lab-enabled offices that we can bring our two parts of our sector coverage together and support developers with attracting science talent into the city. And we've got a couple of live projects with that, and that's quite an exciting challenge, especially if it's a refurb, because commercial office buildings weren't necessarily designed for lab engineering services to be running up and down to the roof and through the risers. So there's a good challenge for us that we like to approach with our problem-solving brains. That's what we get out of bed for. So the life sciences sector is a key sector for us. We like to grow further in that area. We use Revit in all things we do, from early stages of concept design. This is a stage 2 concept design for the Park Lane Hilton Hotel. It's a really powerful interaction with our architects. We're spinning models around from an early stage.
Do you expect people that join you to have Revit skills already, or do you provide any sort of Revit training?
We do provide Revit training where needed. The way that we are modeled generally is I prefer that our design engineering consultants are doing design engineering, and there's a danger that a consultant gets drawn into modeling and spending all their time within the model drawing things up, whereas there's, we're consultants, and the magic happens in the room with the architect and the client. So if we're locking our people behind a screen too much, then we're missing the interaction part that is good consultancy. So what we've got set up is we have a local BIM consultant Revit coordinator that coordinates a pool of outsourced partners. So they might be based in India and in Malaysia, and we've got them dedicated resource in these companies dedicated to London office, and each office across NDY has dedicated resource. We've flown them over for a couple of weeks at a time, doing some training and localization, meeting the team, and then our partners, while they're outsourced partners, they're part of the NDY London team. So we've got some resilience across those teams as well. So they do the grunt work of the drawings. Cool. Within the modeling software. Our engineers, certainly our younger engineers, are very capable within Revit, and they can tweak and turn and twist and use the model way better than I could ever. But we don't want them to be spending their days, in the model designing it necessarily. So there's a balance there. The way that we look at it is anything that in future could be automated, with the development of AI and machine learning and the automation tools that we're developing, then we would look to outsource that. So we would do design work, do the detailed design work locally in London with our engineering consultants, and develop that design to a point that we can then, let's say if it was a 3, 4, 5 floors of a building, if we only needed to design one floor locally and then draw up the other 4 by outsourcing it. So where there's opportunity for what would be in future automation, we'll outsource it, and that goes to calculations as well. We'll do the calcs for one area. If it's repeated, then we can send that off to our outsourced partners, and they'll churn up the calcs. It makes for a good efficiency, and I think it comes back to that purpose. Making spaces work doesn't happen if we kind of lock our engineers in a room behind a screen or behind a spreadsheet doing calcs. Like, that's engineering, sure, but our consultancy really happens in the room with the architect. So we need to send our engineers and consultants to the meetings, to their workshops, not just unburdened with activity like drawing, but also lightening the load or unburdening the load of admin on projects, sending them to a meeting fresh-minded, knowing that they're not, needing to do loads of admin when they turn back to the office. That is a key to making sure that collaboration time is optimized. We could send someone to an office, to a workshop, sorry, with an architect, and they're knackered. They know that they've got a boatload of work to do when they get back to the office. They know they've got 1,000 drawings to process for tender. Those are all of the challenges that we see. Right? Does that fit our purpose? Does that make the space work? Well, actually, we're sending a tired person to a workshop that needs some fresh thinking and some, outside of the box. Let's move all the plant room to the basement kind of thinking. And we wouldn't get that if we didn't revisit our approach. So for the last 5 years, we've been asking the question, how do we make the space work? So one really good example is we've we've brought in and elevated our skill set of our TPA, so technical project assistants. That 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we had admin level support, old school might have been word processing support. Now we've got basically PAs to projects. So it's not just directors at NDY that get a PA, projects get a PA. And those project leaders can be safe in the knowledge that the administrative burden of a project, which is inevitable on all jobs, is being handled while they're out and about, meeting with the architect, meeting with the client. Also, we've outsourced our document control. So we have a team in Manila that again, dedicated resource to London office, so they're part of the family. They work a shifted 9 to 5 to match London hours, and they're very present on projects in terms of document control. So it's as automated as it could be. If 1,000 drawings arrive for comment by a MECALEC public health engineer in the London office, our document control process all of those drawings, divide them up, file them, and then you just get sent a link to, here's your actions, you need to review these drawings. And all of that process, in my day, that used to be me doing all of that admin, drawings coming in, processing it, and we've got all of that as automated as it can be, so that it's just the engineering focus that the engineer needs to focus on. And it makes a big difference. So any initiative that we launch kind of asks that question: are we optimizing the contact time? Are we optimizing our ability to make the space work? You're kind of getting the impression we put people first a lot, and our focus on looking after our staff. I'm an example of a career journey that was very varied, and always had opportunity for me to get my teeth stuck into something that I was showing a propensity for. And the business pivoted very well to sort of say, "Are you showing a bit of intent over there? Here's a team to grow," kind of thing. That's how the interiors team started in NDY London. So that is not done easily. It means a lot of investment into people, and these are just a few examples of what we do in terms of people engagement. So we have a staff, we can call it morning tea, Monday morning. That's what I just came off, and it's keeping everyone abreast of the current business activity, whether it's challenges. It highlights who we're trying to target for recruitment in case other people know people in the industry. It targets the engineering and operations initiatives that we might be launching, and it also talks about, in that staff update every morning we'll announce a sort of staff recognition award as well. So we're recognizing people, and anyone going above and beyond that gets excellent feedback, and externally or internally we send them a little staff award package, which might be a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of bubbles or something like that, but it's recognizing. That's great. Yeah, and it again, that's another, we did that before lockdown. We've done it more since, because we're more remote. So there's probably more shout outs as well, I think, in terms of just not necessarily sending awards every week, but just recognizing people doing a good job. And I think that's been really well received by the team. It's the togetherness that we can lose if we're not careful. And I think we need to put initiatives in place to maintain the togetherness in a hybrid working world, and that's not going to go away. So we've got to really put new things in place, or keep doing some of the good things that we're already doing. Career development and chartership. So we will always have a cohort that are going towards chartership, and we have chartered engineers, including myself, that act as mentors. That we'll support with their applications. We'll do mock interviews with that group that year that are going through, and we kind of create a little bit of healthy competition in that group to say, right, I've got my reports up to 25% complete, or I've done my first 4 quarterly reports for the year, and make sure everyone's aware of where everyone else is at, so people don't get left behind that way, and we make sure everyone gets through that process together. We also have a very active D&I committee, and what we have seen, actually, the uptake in the last 3-4 years is excellent. The feedback that we're getting from our peers as well in the affiliate parent group is our very engaging D&I committee, and the activity that they organise. So we have a social club that organises regular social events within the NDY London office, but we also have a D&I committee that is championing all things equality. And actually July, we've got 50 tickets for the Pride Parade.
Amazing.
So we're going to be marching together in July. It's a big area for us, and I think, you know, it's quite surprising the number of people that come and join NDY and say, oh wow, there wasn't this in other entities, and they didn't have this kind of level of focus. So which we didn't necessarily know, and that's not why we've done it, but it's important to people, and we put people first. And it comes from the CEO all the way down. You know, Stuart Fowler, our CEO, is a big champion for equality, and I think it comes from the top.
That's amazing. That's great.
Finally, our benefits package is, as you would imagine, with a tier 1 consultancy. I think it's pretty standard. I think the only element in addition would be the preferential rates on shares that staff get for Tetra Tech shares, and that can be has been a really good scheme to be part of. We get together as often as we can. I think being in London, it's a very transient community in London, so, you know, like I said, we've got those people on rotation, the Australians and New Zealanders that have come to the UK. They don't necessarily have their uni mates with them or their family with them, so they hang out with their colleagues. Our annual golf day, and you know, various. We also have an annual weekend away. So this picture here, dining out together, nice. is a hike that we do. We've done Snowdonia, we've done the Seven Sisters as well down in Kent, and we'll stay in a local hotel and spend the weekend, and then you know, do a couple of dinners and things like that. And it's not work related, it's very much a social event. Bit of sporting activity. We've done rafting one year and done canoeing. A few people got dunked that year. It was good. It was a good laugh. So yeah, very much a social team.
It's like the culture sounds amazing. Really does. Like the fact as well that you mentioned it comes from the very top down is that's incredible.
Well, our CEO, it was a graduate engineer 25 years ago in NDY.
25 years? Wow.
Yeah. So he's kind of a really good role model for everybody in the company, because he's played every role.
Yeah.
And my journey is quite similar to that. I've kind of played multiple roles through my career within the NDY team.
Yeah.
And you know, can relate to the team, and the CEO is very approachable in the same way. So having been a graduate, I think he was running the headquarter office Melbourne when he was 30 years old. So he was you know, he was a go-getter for sure. And for him to be CEO and be that role model and very accessible. So it's no lie that I'm a relatively young regional director. Having grown up in the business, we were confident that, you know, there's really good continuity. So Alan Williamson, my predecessor, is still involved with NDY. He's retired, but he's still working a couple of days a week part-time. And he's still very, obviously his knowledge and depth is still really valuable. So what we've got with a couple of our kind of retiring directors, I call them retiring because they're doing 1 to 3 days a week, kind of groomed into the role for over a year while Alan was still in the role. So having that, you know, organic changeover. He's still there. He's on the bat phone if I need him for any emergency kind of stuff. So the relationships that we've got over the years, I think, have been really powerful in terms of maintaining stability through difficult times. I've asked Alan to do is chair a design direction committee. Okay. So every Monday afternoon we convene. He basically stays off the golf course on Monday afternoons for us, and he'll keep that slot free. So every project, major project that comes down the pipeline, new projects that we land, he'll chair a committee, and we'll pull in the relevant people that will be involved in the project, as well as our technical directors, and we'll have a master planning session. And also, because we do it as a remote call, graduates can listen in on that call, and they just hear the senior people bouncing ideas around of which way the project should go. And that is another just method of bridging the gap of hybrid working, because graduates wouldn't otherwise, you know, those over-the-shoulder conversations that you might hear when people have got the fat pens out and they're doing scribbles, markups. We lose that in the hybrid world sometimes because the graduates aren't in the room together. So that's it's multifaceted use of our retiring directors with their industry knowledge and depth of experience. We're not losing that. We're putting it and harnessing it putting it to good use. And I think that's a really good message to new engineers joining, senior engineers and junior engineers, knowing that we've got this support structure in place. And I think that is a good support framework for people to develop their careers in confidence.
You guys seem to have really nailed the hybrid approach, like the innovative ideas you've got, like that being able to just listen into a call. It's simple when you think about it, but I personally haven't heard of anybody else that has implemented that technique yet, and it's invaluable, especially for younger junior engineers, graduate engineers. Like, that must be amazing for them to be able to do.
It is. It's interesting because you know, situations change depending on levels, right? So you'll always have someone that's like, oh, I don't need babysitting.
Yeah.
They might be a senior engineer, but obviously it's not babysitting, but it can be perceived as that. So there's a balance to be had. So, if someone says, I don't need a design direction, I know which direction I'm going in, that's fine. But they'll usually find that they got some value out of the conversation anyway, even if it was just some contact time with someone who's done 30 years in the industry and just said, have you thought about that? Oh, actually, and even the two technical directors that are the retiring directors would be having that same conversation with each other to check that they hadn't missed something. So it's evolved from a need, I think, and that same question: how do we optimize the contact time so that a consultant can turn up to a meeting, and in that scenario they can have confidence that the solutions that they're presenting for design have been well considered, considering multidiscipline, and considering the client brief and the master plan, the big picture, and that gives you confidence in a meeting that you've got that backup. So yeah, at all levels can benefit from it. Probably worth touching on, Jade, our flexible policy for returning to work.
Yeah,
that's a big question for a lot of candidates. We aren't mandating a 3 days a week in the office or 1 day a week working from home. We're not mandating it globally, and this is from the CEO down. Is we've got a team of leaders, and they can tell us what the best rhythm and solution is to their working month, and they can say, right, I'm going to support my client, I'm going to be involved, engaged with my team, and I'm going to develop my juniors, and I'm going to hit all of those goals by doing this and this, which means working from home on these days and working in the office on those days, and that suits the client's needs. And there's no minimum days, there's no maximum days. Basically, it's true flexibility.